Wolverine versus Romulus in a bodybuilding battle, who would win? Let's find out. So first of all, both of these characters are absolutely massive, absolutely ripped, and have fought one another. And these guys both know how to put on a show, so I figured it'd be cool to put them on stage in a bodybuilding battle. Now, it'd be even cooler if I had them in the compulsory poses and stuff like that, but we're gonna be dealing with what we have, which are the comic versions of them. So first of all, let's look at Romulus, and let's actually kind of see what some of his stats are. This guy is absolutely massive. Look at this, he's 7 foot, making him one of the biggest bodybuilders in the world and 300 pounds. Now, obviously, that actually is not the biggest. If you guys have never heard of the Dutch Giant, then you're missing out. I mean, look at how big this guy is. I think he's 7'2", and that's him with Larry Wheels there. This guy's absolutely crazy big. That's him with Jay Cutler, your Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler. He makes him look small. This guy's arm is like as big as his torso, and I know Jay's torso is bigger than my entire body mixed together. This is him with half Thor Bjornsson, like the strongest man in the world. Like, he is absolutely massive. That's him with like some normal people. Given that, Romulus wouldn't actually be the biggest bodybuilder in the world in terms of height, but he would be right up there. And actually coming in at 300 pounds is actually not that big for a 7-foot guy. That means he would be really, really lean. In fact, if I looked at his physique like this and knew he was 7 foot tall, I would say he's probably more like 350 or so, because maybe up to 400, because you'll see guys that are like that thick in terms of muscle mass, except they're like 5'7" or 5'8" or something like that. So they're shorter, but they'll still weigh like 250 or something, not much less than this. And you'll get some guys on the bodybuilding stage that weigh 300 pounds and they're like 5'11" or something, like Big Ramy comes to mind, or Ronnie Coleman, someone like that. So he's big. He is really, really big, and he's got a great physique. I would say overall, I would put both him and Wolverine kind of in the classic physique division. They're not like super overly muscular, which is kind of crazy to say when you look at his physique right here. That's not overly muscular. But when I think of overly muscular, I think of someone like Master Roshi, Broly, those kind of people. So think about that. This guy, I would put more, he could probably compete in open bodybuilding, but I'd probably put him more in kind of the classic physique division. That's kind of what his physique looks more like to me. So given that, I would say in terms of muscle mass, he gets a 10 out of 10. He's got a really good muscle mass to him. Like like I said, he could be borderline open bodybuilding. And then in terms of symmetry, he definitely gets a 10 out of 10 on that. And then conditioning, I mean, it depends on which picture we're looking at. Like if we're looking at this one right here, like I like this, it's kind of a cool anatomy chart and stuff. Not as much. This one a little bit more. We can see some of the vascularity, the feathering, the muscular separation. And so I would say overall, most of the pictures I'm seeing, he's super lean, but not like bodybuilding lean. So I'd probably have to give him something more like a 7 out of 10, maybe an 8 out of 10 on conditioning. And then in terms of proportions, I've got to give him, an 8 out of 10 as well. I think his proportions look great in this picture, but I think in other pictures, it's hard to kind of see like where his legs are, or he looks a little bit overpowered in certain muscle groups, like his forearm here as compared to his biceps and stuff. So his proportions look a little bit off. Now, given that, let's move on and take a look at Wolverine. Now, Wolverine comes in, I mean, just such a badass. I love this character. As you know, if you've been watching for any amount of time, he's my favorite Marvel character, by far, favorite comic book character. If we look at his size, we can see that he's 5'3". Yeah, Hugh Jackman is not accurate, in case you were not aware. And he weighed 195. Of course, if you include the adamantium, he weighs exactly the same as Romulus. So we're not going to include that because I don't know, we don't look at bones, I guess, when it comes to bodybuilding. We're gonna look more at the flesh, the muscle. So I would say 195 is pretty accurate, especially for his build. I would say that's also extremely jacked, because when you think about 5'3" and 195, that is huge. And he's got like barely any little body fat on him. And when I think about that, I think of not just classic. Honestly, he would probably do better in the under 212 division, which is like open bodybuilding, but for shorter guys typically. And so when I think about that division, I think of people like Flex Lewis. I mean, look at this guy. He is just shredded to the bone. He was like the best to ever do it in that division. And we look at him, and he was about 5'5" and weighed about 212 or so on stage, maybe just slightly under that. If this guy looks like this, and he's 5'5", so he's 2 inches taller than Wolverine, and he's just slightly bigger, that means Wolverine should look very similar to him, obviously with about 15 pounds less body weight or so. And when we look at Wolverine with that in mind, we would think he would look something like this. That would be like a perfect rendition of him. But he's not quite that well proportioned. I think there are definitely some issues with the proportions, but I do think in terms of muscle mass, he's got a really good amount of it. So if we're assuming that he's kind of in the 212 division or the classic physique division, I actually think he's got a really good amount of muscle mass. I give him like an 8/9 out of 10 on that. So definitely a bit less than Romulus on that. But in terms of symmetry, obviously I give him a 10 out of 10 on that as well. And then in terms of conditioning, I actually think he's doing a lot better than Romulus. I'm going to give him a 9 to 10 out of 10, just depending on the pictures. Like, he looks really ripped. And I've seen some other pictures where he's just like, I mean, shredded to the bones. Like, he is as ripped as it gets. Side note, I bet with this guy's healing factor, he could probably have damn good workouts, because that's one of the reasons like that we slow down, is because we just have to take time to heal and recover. That's why we do deloads and things like that, have light training days, you know. But Wolverine wouldn't need that because he just heals instantly. So could he just stay in the gym just doing like curls all day long and just grow his biceps infinitely? Let me know in the comments down below. Is that a thing? Would that work? I don't know. Or would his body just heal and just recover and go back to like a steady state and maybe not even adapt? I don't even know what that would look like. Let me know what you think in the comments. But I have seen some shots where his proportions do look a little bit wacky. It just really depends on the shot. That's why it's hard to rate characters' physiques from a bodybuilding perspective, because we really need a one set version of the character in like all the compulsory poses to really get them down pat. But overall, I think his proportions are really good too. I'm going to give him an 8/9 out of 10. So between these two guys, obviously Romulus is much bigger than Wolverine, and they would both do really well on a bodybuilding stage. But if you placed them together against one another, in my opinion, Wolverine would be the winner, mostly because his conditioning and his proportions. What do you guys think about that? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. And which bodybuilding battle between fictional characters would you like to see next? Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video.